Hello everyone, I'm bringing you the Mannequin of the Month for September 2023 today, and what we're looking at here is the kit of a British infantryman serving in the Gulf in 1991 inside Saudi Arabia just prior to the move into Iraq, and we're going to talk about the specifics of the kit as we normally do here. There's quite a bit to talk about on this mannequin, there's quite a lot of kit here. This topic was available on the poll over on Patreon, as I've already stated over there. Unfortunately, we had a three-way split on the poll this time, and I can't cover all three in 1 month. So I've taken the topic which was, I guess you could say, been hanging around the longest on the poll as an option. So we're talking about this today. The other two options which were available will continue to be available, and obviously they will no doubt turn up in future Mannequin of the Month videos going forward. So what we're talking about here is the kit of a British infantryman specifically, so a lot of up-to-date kit to look at here, a lot of very late Cold War developments in British kit to talk about on the mannequin here, which of course were on full view during operations in the Gulf, and this is based primarily on photographs of the King's Own Scottish borderers involved in Operation Granby in the desert in 1991. Starting at the top as we normally do, we have here the Mark VI ballistic nylon helmet. And of course, in the mid-1980s, this had come to replace the Mark IV steel helmet which preceded it. And this has a Desert DPM cover. By this point, the majority of frontline infantrymen had been provided with Desert DPM uniform, covers for body armour, covers for helmets and so forth. There had been a concerted effort to roll this uniform out and certainly get it to the frontline troops. Not everyone had it, even in frontline formations, and certainly a majority of supporting arms still were wearing temperate DPM. NBC suits in particular were in short supply, so you do see a mix right the way through to the end of operations in the Gulf. You see a mix of green and Desert DPM, but certainly in frontline units by the actual time of the move into Iraq, the Desert DPM uniform had come to dominate, and certainly we can see that here on the mannequin. Everything here is Desert DPM, from the body armour cover, the helmet cover and the NBC suit. Moving down to talk about the NBC suit, we have here an example of the Mark IV NBC suit in the Desert DPM finish. Now, if there was one thing that was in short supply, it was the NBC suit. So whereas the uniform underneath may have been Desert DPM, some men were still having to wear the green DPM version of the NBC suit, which obviously doesn't blend in the desert very well, but the Desert DPM NBC suits were in short supply. But if anyone was going to get them, in theory, it should have been the frontline infantry. That didn't always happen, of course, but we do have an example of the Desert DPM NBC suit here, as you can see. The arm pocket here, obviously with a patch there, and a patch here for attaching detector paper. You have the Velcro adjustment at the cuffs there. Most of the other details are hidden underneath the combat body armour, of course. And this is the lightweight combat body armour, again a late Cold War development in British equipment, British uniform. A very useful bit of kit in that it's a lot lighter than the preceding designs of body armour. So from that point of view, it had its advantages. You obviously have a large pocket on the front here and a smaller pocket here which could take a dressing. So you have a bit of carrying capacity on the front of the body armour there. You do often see these with blood types and so forth written on the pocket flaps to assist, obviously, if you were wounded. You can see this adjusts in on each side here. It does close down the front, but it adjusts in on each side with two straps. You can see, well, one of those here, the other one's hidden underneath the webbing there. And these were basically standard issue again, but not everyone got the Desert DPM covers. Mostly in frontline formations you would see that, but certainly some of the rear echelon troops would still have the green DPM covers for these. But again, as I say, there was a concerted effort to try and get as much of the Desert DPM uniform and equipment and so forth out to the Gulf prior to the cessation of hostilities. In terms of the web equipment, we have the most up-to-date set of web equipment in the British Army at the time. This is of course the PLCE, or personal load carrying equipment, the British Army's final answer to the question of a nylon modern up-to-date web equipment with plastic fittings and so forth to replace the cotton 1958 pattern which had preceded it. And certainly in terms of frontline infantry, a majority were equipped with this. In terms of rear echelon troops, many still had the 1958 pattern, of course. And this is compatible with the SA-80, the L-85, and that was, of course, the standard, the assault rifle for infantry by this point. But many rear echelon troops, again, were still using the SMG and the SLR, so the submachine gun and the L1A1 self-loading rifle. So a mix of weapons there. But again, we're looking at frontline infantry here, so we have the up-to-date equipment, and of course would have been using the up-to-date L85, the most up-to-date small arm of the British Army. Obviously these here are designed to take the magazines for the SA-80. the Stanag, the basic NATO 30 round magazine, obviously compatible with the SA-80, the M16, etc. And these will take 3 at a pinch. They have a divider in the middle which was often cut out, but they will take 3 at a pinch in each of these pockets. You can cram those in, so it gives quite a good capacity for ammunition. Certainly when you think about the 20 round magazines for the SLR which have preceded, the ammunition carrying capacity of this equipment is quite an advance on that. You can see the waist belt coming round here. Obviously this clips together with a Nexus type buckle there, as you can see. And then we have the shoulder straps supporting the load of the ammunition pouch at the front here, the weight of the ammunition pouches. They are directly supported with a strap coming down here to this ring on the back. Obviously you actually have 2 yokes over the shoulders here. You have the yoke and the shoulder straps coming down to support the ammunition pouches, and you have a yoke over the top of that which supports the side pouches from the rucksack on the back. So you're carrying that with the 2 pouches together on the back, and we'll see that in just a minute. You can see the strap coming down here which actually clips into the top of the ammunition pouches there, meaning the weight of that on the back helps to support the ammunition pouches. Basically keeps the whole thing together as one set of equipment, I guess you could say. We'll start moving this around now and have a look at some of the other details. Moving on to look at the right hand side of the Mannequin here, you can see the side profile of the Mark 6 helmet here. You can see the arm coming down here of the NBC suit. We have a dressing pocket here. Again, you have an area where you can attach detector paper there, and another one down on the cuff, as you can see. If we lift this out of the way here, you can see the 2 ammunition pouches on a single backing piece that form the ammunition pouches for the PLC equipment. You also see the strap coming down here which buckles into these and then runs back to the side pouches of the rucksack which are carried on the back there, as you can see. We also have a water bottle pouch round on the hip here, the standard PLCE fittings and so forth. That's something that was discussed in a video not that long ago, looking at the PLCE equipment in some detail. We have that water bottle pouch there. There is another water bottle carried on the equipment as well, which we'll see in just a moment when we look at the back of the equipment. Looking at the back of the Mannequin here, you can see the hood for the NBC suit sticking out underneath the helmet there. During the initial assault, the NBC suit was worn together with NBC boots. The respirator and the gloves were not worn. They were carried ready to be donned quickly in case of need. So that's the sort of order of dress you would see during the initial assault. Moving on to look at the equipment, we have dominating the back of the Mannequin here the 2 side pouches from the rucksack, and these are carried on a yoke, as already mentioned, which buckles into the top of the ammunition pouches around the front, and these are basically removed from the side of the main rucksack, the main Bergen rucksack, and then these can be attached onto this yoke and carried separately on the back as we have here. And they give a relatively good carrying capacity for sort of assault when you don't need obviously the rest of your kit, but they do nevertheless provide quite a good carrying capacity compared to the preceding 1958 pattern equipment. Round on the belt we have the utility pouch here, which could generally be used to carry a mess tin or a mug and rations in there. That was quite a common thing to carry in the utility pouch. And then round here we have another water bottle pouch. This is actually a 1958 pattern water bottle pouch. It's quite common in photographs from the Gulf to see these in use on the PLCE, the personal load carrying equipment, because of a shortage of the water bottle pouches. For service in the Gulf, an extra water bottle was issued, and obviously you need an extra water bottle pouch, but in some instances it would be from the preceding design of equipment because there weren't enough of the new PLC water bottles to give everyone 2, seemingly. So you end up with some 1958 pattern components occasionally attached onto the personal load carrying equipment, as we have here. Round on the far hip here we have the respirator haversack, and this contains the S10 respirator and the various other accessories in there. Combo pens, you carry the gloves, the inner and outer NBC gloves in there as well when they're not being used, and the decontamination kit and so forth carried round in there. And this is carried on its own strap so that it can be carried individually, separately from the rest of the equipment. If the rest of the equipment is removed, this is carried on its own strap around the waist and therefore stays with you even when the rest of the equipment is taken off, due to the perceived high threat of NBC, particularly for chemical attacks, which there was good evidence to suggest that that would be a serious concern in the Gulf given what had been going on in the preceding years. So always carried, as I say, carried on its own separate strap around the waist here. Finally, moving on to look at the left-hand side of the Mannequin here, there isn't a huge amount more to see. You can see a little bit more detail of the respirator haversack there. If I lift the arm out of the way, you may be able to see the bayonet for the L85 down here, and then we have the ammunition pouches round in front of that on the belt, as you can see. So not much more to see here really, just the extra component being the bayonet carried round on the left hip there, as you can see. So I do hope you found it interesting looking at this. I have to say I do find Gulf War kit very interesting, and certainly it's a snapshot of the British Army's modernisation at the end of the Cold War. The conflict itself is very interesting as well, of course, and I have spoken to veterans previously on the channel talking about their experience in the Gulf. Have a look on the channel if you'd be interested to see those. And as I say, the uniform and so forth is interesting to talk about as well. I certainly hope you found it interesting looking at this in this video. If you have, and you'd like to see more of this sort of thing, please do consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And whether you're newly subscribing or you've previously subscribed, please do make sure you hit the little bell, the notification button down below, and that will of course alert you when I upload future videos. If you really like my uploads and you would like to support the channel, you can. Both Patreon and PayPal are linked down below. And a massive thank you to everybody who supports the channel using those two methods. It really is greatly appreciated, as I always say. Thank you all very much indeed. Of course, if you want the opportunity to vote on what's going to be covered in Mannequin of the Month each month, there is of course the option to do so, the corporal tier over on Patreon. If you'd like to follow the channel on social media, you can. Facebook, Instagram and Twitter are all linked down below, and there will of course be photographs of this posted up over on those sites as well. And if you'd like to get in touch but you don't really use social media, there is of course an email address down below as well. That's everything for this video, so until next time, bye for now.